Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our final episode this season of the Fandalorians. I know a lot of excitement and a lot of sadness. The two of them can go together with the end of a season, but we've got so much to get into. I don't want to necessarily waste too much time on anything, so let's get our introductions straight out of the way. Coming at me on this side right here from Smirking Gun Reviews, it's Rob Stone.
What is up, everybody? Glad to be here. This is a momentous occasion, and let's not spend any more time with that. Let's take it to my friend over here, Don Willie.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? You already know who I am. You already know what we're doing here. Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy! Mark.
Hello. So yeah, I'm just decided like yesterday, right after I watched the episode, I text Darren and I was like, "Can I join this discussion?" I got a lot of things to say, and thankfully he said yes. So great to be back here to talk about it. So you guys are eager. So yeah, let's get started.
Wonderful. Yeah, it was sort of a perfect call up, and it was just great. It gives us the full foursome. The whole screen is properly balanced out. We appreciate that. Okay. Before we get off to things real quick, I just want to remind everyone, do you like The Expanse? We're talking The Expanse here. There is so much Expanse going on in this room, you can't even stand it. Right after the episodes, you can catch Smirking Gun Reviews. Rob is doing reviews of each episode. And of course, Mark here's doing reviews of each episode. And then the Thursday night afterwards, just the day after, we have this whole group discussion going on. It's not going to be here. It's going to be over on Mark's channel here, Enchantment of Eternity, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern, Thursday nights. Right after The Expanse, we're going to be moving all the way through February with some rotating visitors and such. So individual reviews, full in-depth discussion, joining in the chat, asking your questions. It is all here. Of course, also coming up next month in January, we have our big Fans of S.H.I.E.L.D. review of Agent Carter, Season 1. That's going to be mid-January. We're looking at about the 12th or so. And then, of course, maybe keep an eye out for FanDivision coming up later in January. Shh, it's a secret. Anyway, let's jump right into things with, of course, our standard review roundup. Rob, kick things off for us. What do you think of our big season finale, Chapter 16, The Rescue?
Well, circle December, 18th in your calendar, because that was when we all saw one of the best episodes of television ever produced, in my opinion. In the time of streaming and everything where things feel a little less special and things are churned out, it's still these kind of little moments in time that I'll remember when episode 16 came out. Because as far as for nerds, like nerds, not people who suddenly became nerds when the MCU got popular, but like real nerds, real nerds, the ones that watch all the stuff. This is a moment that we've been waiting for. That's probably one of the easily in the top biggest nerd moments for television, for nerddom ever, and TV in general. Like, this gets to be the episode where we saw so much that people have always wanted, but not just that, but like one of the best finales of a show ever. The music in this was unbelievable. And I said I'd only go for a few minutes, or a few sentences, but now that I'm talking, it's going to be hard to stop. So I will stop, because that is just one of the best things I've ever seen. Don.
I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, not knowing what I was going to see. For the past couple of weeks, I've had predictions about what I thought was going to happen. And for the first time in a long time, I was so glad that I was wrong. I was so wrong, and it felt so right to be wrong. This is at least the last 15 minutes or so was something I've been waiting to see since I was about maybe 5 years old. And, like the first time around, I didn't shed any tears because I was just in shock, because I'd never in a million years I was like, no, they're gonna do something totally different, and yeah, we haven't gotten into spoilers yet, but when we do, I'll go full spoiler. But I'm not. It's hard for me to put into words the feeling. So yeah, I'm gonna yield my time. Mark, please take it away. Oh boy.
Cool. So I guess I'll add to this collective nerd gushing over this episode, which I was absolutely totally blown away by. I think it is easily the best episode of the show. It is one of the best episodes of the whole year. And after watching this episode, I thought, the future of Star Wars really is in these streaming television shows. Like, they shouldn't really not even bother with the movies anymore, because this episode and the season overall was far superior to any of the modern movies that they did so far. And I mean, maybe they could do a couple of movies to supplement the shows, but they should switch to that, where the shows, instead of the show supplementing the movies, it's going to be the movie supplementing the shows, because they obviously far exceeded and they excel at storytelling and giving satisfying, amazingly satisfying ending to a 2-season arc that was more powerful, way more powerful than anything the modern movies, Star Wars movies did. So yeah, totally, completely blown away by this episode.
There we go. Let's turn the mic back on. Wow, I am really kind of overjoyed with everybody's excitement about this episode. I know certainly I talked to Don moments after I finished watching it, and I started it right after. So he was right on with me with dude, tomorrow, did you just see that? Did you just see what happened? Oh my God. I mean, I jumped on Twitter. Social media was exploding. I mean, and I totally, of course, understand. We got, our kind of Mandalorian team up. We had a big rescue bit. We had some awesome fighting. We had, the big showdown, and of course, a surprise reveal at the end that just kind of blew everyone away. And I think, look, if you want to jump and have questions about the end, you can jump forward in this review. I'll go through later and do a little breakdown so people can kind of jump and do things with them like I used to do with my old reviews. We're going to move things kind of in a general quick through the episode to sort of talk about it so we can sort of build things up, because I think that's really the sort of proper way to kind of build this, talk about this episode, because I think it really does build on top of each other. I'm also really enjoying the fact that I get to be a contrarian a little bit through this discussion. While I love fests, there were some parts of this episode I had a few issues with. And it's not that it wasn't. I've always talked about that this is a live action cartoon. And with that in mind, this was a great episode for nostalgia and the kids and people and what we remember, that this was crafted beautifully. I just always think they can do a little better. And I think there was some low hanging fruit that they reached for here, that they could have gone a little further and a little bigger on top. And in some sense, I guess maybe some disappointment of where they could have gone, but that's not to say this wasn't an enjoyable episode and it didn't hit all of those moments. So before we kick off our quick little summation, I do want to make one last little side note, contrary to Rob, and a reminder of how much I hate half of the music in this show. half of it is great, and the other half is cheese sauce synth on top of cheese that just yanks me out of it. Just Star Wars to me is John Williams. And sometimes this is not John Williams. That's all I'm going to say. But let us move on really quick. Kicking things off with an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of crossover. Ladies and gentlemen, that's right. Nathaniel Malick as our co-pilot in our big opening scene. Mark, why don't you kind of walk us through real quick and your impressions of, you got to start the action episode off with a nice action scene and villain worthwhile to screen time. What did you think about our shuttle attack?
I thought it was great. I thought it was a great way to kick off the episode. I, of course, am, to my shame, the great shame being here with you guys, have not seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I didn't know that was a cameo. But it was a good act, and I liked the way they played that character, because at first, like, both of them were like, oh, we surrender, but the other guy was just acting and ended up shooting the other guy in the head because he wanted to surrender. So that was all. It was a great action sequence. Great way to kick it off. And I love how the scientist guy he didn't care. He just wanted to live, and he was like, I'll cooperate, whatever. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good scene, a great way to sort of jump us into this episode with a relevant action scene that really sets the stage for things going forward.
Excellent. Right on there. Don, you got anything to add there on our shuttle bit?
I mean, listen, Nathaniel Malick was a dick on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he's a dick in The Mandalorian. He's sitting up there talking about how he was so glad to see Alderaan destroyed, and he was like, "Yeah, I noticed the teardrop on your face there. Yeah. If anything happens to Dr. Pershing here, you're gonna wish you stayed on Alderaan." Like, really? Oh, come on, man. That was super loaded. He was like, talking about how he was ridding the galaxy of terrorism. But again, one thing that we've seen with this show in particular is the other side. We've seen people who have bought into the propaganda. Obviously he is someone who not only bought into the propaganda, he was raised in it. He was a part of the system. So, shout out to the actor. I'm not exactly sure what his name is, unfortunately, but he played his part well. He was supposed to be an Imperial dick. He was Imperial dick to the end. And he got shot in the face, and I'm so glad for it.
Excellent. Yes. Unfortunately, I had jotted it down before, but it was on my other bits of notes, so my apologies. I think the pilot also cameoed on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I didn't get a chance to look through his IMDb, but he did look a little familiar. Look, I'm glad they're casting off of AOS. Please bring more people over. That would be awesome. Rob, do you got any additions there on our shuttle showdown with our Death Wish Malick? You're on mute.
That's the second time for us, right? Okay, so right off the bat, I just love how we get just dropped into the middle of the action. Like, we're right in the middle of this fight. He hits him with an ion cannon, which I loved the response. He's like, the guy lays, like, we got hit with an ion cannon. Like, and, we get to have Dr. Pershing back here. But yes, the Nathaniel Malick thing. As soon as I saw him, I was like, oh God, yes. Does this mean we get to savor his death twice? So, I mean, I enjoyed the fact that he really, like Don said, was a true believer. I mean, and how I couldn't tell if he was goading her into shooting him, or if he knew he was kind of not making it out no matter what. He was just going to say the worst stuff to somebody. He could possibly do it. And yeah, the casting is perfect. This guy always is good as this type of character. And when she shot him, I was like, I had to I have to do it like this because it'd be too loud. But for all Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, getting to see Malik shot in the head again, I was like, so that happened and it was good.
Visceral satisfaction. That's all we ask for from a show, right? Yeah, I did love that. It was a great scene. I loved how it did kind of get us right into what's going on, where we're going. Now we've got the doctor. Next step, we've got to recruit our compatriots. We've got to get those that are going to attack with us. We didn't have to go all the way back to getting Cobb Vanth, which I think was right. Without his armor, he's useless. This has turned into more of the Mandalorian show. So I guess so it's a joke. 2 Mandalorians walk into a bar. I'll kick this one off. This is that what you wrote down? Perfect. Look, this was a fun scene. It was definitely a scene that we wanted to see. Everybody getting together. We've got to have our little scuffle and so on. It seemed a little too much of like posing. You don't belong. I don't belong. Or you don't supposed to be in the armor. I mean, I get we're not all supposed to be friends instantaneously. I have to say, I really loved Bo-Katan referring to Boba Fett of like, I've heard that voice 1,000 times. That was the coolest moment, honestly, in the whole scene. The fact that, yeah, he's a clone. I mean, he's not like just a clone. He's kind of like the clone prime, clone original. I mean, he's an untainted, unchanged clone, I suppose. But it did also make me wonder, would Bo-Katan have heard of Boba Fett? I mean, I know they've implied that the children of the Watch do a lot of bounty hunting. And certainly when they walk in, not all of us are bounty hunters. Sort of implies that that's sort of the separation of the two cultures. But Boba Fett, at least from my understanding through Star Wars, is a pretty well-known bounty hunter. And especially having Mandalorian armor, would she have? I don't know. And maybe they didn't really play that she didn't know who he was, and maybe mention that with mentioning the bounty hunting. But yeah, there was one kind of question I had through that. It was like, man, would Bo-Katan have at least heard of Boba Fett? Not necessarily have crossed paths, not necessarily known that this was a clone, but it's pretty distinctive armor. Anyway, that was my thought. Rob, let's send it around the other direction. How about you kick this one off? Our Bo-Katan Mandalorian bar scene. And mute.
That's what I get for trying to make sure that nobody hears background noise. So I think that she kind of was saying that she understood who he was by making the bounty hunter comment. If not, I didn't really pay that much attention to it. I really dug this scene. Again, I'm forgiving it a lot. Like, you're not wrong to have these questions at all. There's very few times that I forgive like any kind of little issue I have with it. And this is one of those episodes that's going to get a pass for a few things that logic problems I might have. I just like seeing them in action. Like what she says, if we had shown this kind of grit, we'd have never lost our place in the first place. Also, we get kind of more confirmation from Boba Fett, about what the status of the Mandalorian planet is, that the Empire turned it into glass. So like, what are you even fighting for? Like, this place is, nothing. So And I did think that there was a little cheesy line delivery from Sackhoff here in the beginning. But again, I forgave it because after I watched it the second time, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I know why she's talking like that. So I know I thought it was a fine scene.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I was see, now I just lost my head. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm kind of working on like a few hours of sleep. So if I kind of drift off here and there for a moment, just forgive me. Luckily, I got some awesome guys that are going to help sort of keep the show going if I start wandering. So, Don, did you have any thoughts there on our Bo-Katan's run-in with Boba Fett?
Well, first off, I definitely thought of the whole two Mandalorians walk into a bar the moment that I saw them. And can we give a shout out for the fact that they used Bo-Katan's ship from Rebels in live action? That was awesome to see. Yeah, you know, the whole interaction with our Mandos versus the Night Owls was pretty interesting for the fact that until Din Djarin told Bo-Katan that basically, hey, I know how to find your guy. She was pretty much like, look, you know, you can kick rocks. I don't care about going to find your kid either. You know, but once she said like, hey, Moff Gideon, I'm like, all right, well, yeah, I don't know how to find Moff Gideon, so yeah, you and your quest can kick rocks. And you're like, no, but I have his coordinates. I'm sorry, now what now? Darksaber, you say? Gideon, you say? I will be queen, you say? You know, yeah, and then her insults to the Boba Fett, the whole thing about I've heard your voice 1,000 times, and you're like, oh, this. She was like, you're a disgrace to that honor. And you're like, it was my father's honor. You're like, don't you mean your donors? I'm like, ooh, way to kick a man into the nuts there. You know, and I'm like, damn, that was uncalled for. It's not like he rolled in and was just like, hey, oh, aren't you the chick that wants to be Mandalore? Yeah. How did that work out for you? Where'd you sword at, huh? Heard the dude in the black armor's got it. You know, so she. I mean, this was kind of a throwback to more of the way that she was in Clone Wars, because in Clone Wars, Bo-Katan was kind of an asshole. You know, and normally, you know, that's not a term reserved for females, but in that case, like anybody who has watched Clone Wars will know, Bo-Katan was not a likable character, at least for most of that run. You know, and Rebels, she had more redeeming qualities, but it was definitely one of those things where, you know, I'm like, damn, why did she have to go back down that route? You know, then a little back and forth between, oh man, and it's funny because the sidekick is telling the other sidekick, you know, I didn't know the sidekicks talk.
Good.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. Now I'm trying to remember what Sasha Banks' character was named. But you know, he had the fight with Boba Fett, and it still goes to show, like, hey, look, he might not be at 100% efficiency, but don't think just because you're supposedly a true Mandalorian that you're going to kick his ass. You know, you don't become one of the most famous and feared bounty hunters in the entire galaxy because someone shows up in blue armor and is just able to mop the floor with you. Like, that's not how it happens.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good thing that might be showing again some of the culture differences, and perhaps something this might be more we're getting into in perhaps either one of these spin-offs or further into this particular series, depending on where they're going to go with the whole Bo-Katan and Mandalorian storyline. Also, I did want to throw in, I think they've played with the actual fate of Mandalore, and I think that we've talked about this before, that I think they're implying it's more of a myth of what has happened with Mandalore, that everybody has a different story, that perhaps the reality of it, the Empire has put out some, propaganda. The Mandalore was destroyed because they stood up against it. It may not be glassed. It may not be destroyed. It may just be, oppressed. It may just be stumbled. So I think they're kind of leaving the actual specifics of what's happened to Mandalore up in the air, because they've mentioned several different things, I think, at this point. But again, those are just my thoughts. Mark, what about yourself? Our little night owl face off with Boba and Mando.
Well, if I had one really, 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 really minor complaint about this episode, it would probably be that basically I could probably describe like every single episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian, as it starts off with Mando encounters, some badass, and they are adversarial, they get in a fight or about to get in a fight, but then they're like, oh, we have to work together, and they ended up working together to take on the big bad guy. And so that seems like the cliche format that they fall back to every time. So I kind of was like, okay, we're doing this again, but I was okay with it. And especially in this episode, because I think it made sense, because they set up the storyline for Bo-Katan and her sidekick, whatever, to not like Boba Fett, and I think that goes along with established lore. And I thought it was kind of cool the way they handled it. But I like the character of Bo-Katan, and be mindful. I haven't actually seen Clone Wars, so this is the first time, this season's the first time I'm seeing this character. But I think the way they're talking about the history of a Mandalore and her quest, it really helps, like, really build the world and do the kind of world building that was completely absent in these freaking sequel trilogy, which is part of the reason why this is so much better, and really setting the stage and getting you so much more fascinated and interested in this greater world, which I think, it seems to me, and I know we'll talk about this later on, but it seems to me this is going to be important for seasons going forward. So yeah, overall, even though it was like a teeny complaint that they seem to be doing the same thing each episode, I still enjoyed the scene because I really like these characters.
Right on. Well, if you do ever watch the Clone Wars, it'll be an easy connection because, of course, Katie Sackhoff voices the character in the cartoon as well. So I think it's also a nice thing to really carry the character over as well, is because she is obviously tied in and has lived that character for so long. Now it's just live action.
One question I had, and I think people might have mentioned this the first time she appeared, did she like not age? Like, doesn't she look like the same age she was portrayed at in the Clone Wars, which was supposed to be like 20 years ago or something?
Here's the thing. She could have been, because you got to think about it like this. Obi-Wan during the Clone Wars would have been in like maybe his early to mid 30s, right? And I think Bo-Katan was supposed to be the younger sister of a woman that Obi-Wan was in love with. So technically, if you're talking 20-something years ago, she could have been in her late teens, early 20s in the Clone Wars. And then now, Katie Sackhoff is in her late 30s, early 40s. So, it actually does add up well. It's hard to tell because we don't get the exact age of how old she was during the Clone Wars, but I imagine that
she's in her
show Rebels, because she shows up in the show Rebels, and Rebels only takes place like, well, you know what? In fact, the end of Rebels is, I believe, about maybe 2 years after Return of the Jedi, or
Yeah, it's sort of around the same.
It's somewhere around there, and she's in the final season of Rebels, and this is only a few years after that.
Yeah, basically, what was it? It's Clone Wars was 22 to 19 before the Battle of Yavin. This is 9 years after the Battle of Yavin, so it's about 30 years after the Clone Wars. If she was in her early to mid 20s, then she could be in her late 40s, early 50s, basically at this point. But Expanse humans live a lot longer, and Mandalorians could have a variation. So it works enough. It works enough, I think. Yeah, I've been looking at a lot of Star Wars dates lately, folks. Sorry. And actually, let me take a little pause right here and say hi, everybody who is joining us live in the chat right now. There is so much discussion going on. A lot of guys are jumping all over with what you loved about the end, the beginning, the middle. But let's say hi to y'all. Silva Surfer, always here in the chat. Love you, man. Dan Palm, fangirl, and loving it. I believe I saw Devontae Smith in here as well. Yes, Deborah joining us. Mr. Hootie Dean jumping in. A big fan of Katie Sackhoff's there. Harold Bresdorf, nice seeing you, Harold. F. Drellishak. Yeah, and you guys, lot of love for this episode. And for the performances, a lot of discussions on the fate of Mandalore going in here as well. So thanks all of you for joining us live and throwing stuff in. If I catch some things, I want to try and jump into that as we go along here as well. All right, so now we've got our Mandalorians. We've got the doc. The only thing you do before your attack is you got to do your plan. And again, not a whole lot to it. It's very sort of straightforward. Again, really nice. The doc's so cooperative. I think he's just a big Grogu fan and just wants to make sure that he's okay. But very, very helpful with information on that. I'm just going to throw out, Don, why don't you kick things off here? Any thoughts on the whole plan and setup here? Again, there's not much to it, but I want to ask around in case there's something I'm missing.
So, this kind of reminds me of an episode of a totally different TV show, and that is The Flash. I believe it's season 3. It's either season 2 or season 3. They have to go back in time and get Captain Cold. And Captain Cold, they're like, look, we need you because we know that you know how to do all these elaborate heists and all that. And his explanation is make the plan, execute the plan. The plan's going to go south, throw away the plan, execute another plan. And that's pretty much what was happening here. It was like, all right, yeah, they drafted the plan. It's like, all right, yeah, we're going to do this thing here. And you guys got to go over here, and then we got Dark Troopers over here, and Dr. Pershing is like, oh well, yeah, well you can do this and you can do this, but you can't do this, and you're like, oh okay, all right, so everybody got the plan, all right, great, and yeah, we see that things are starting to go according to plan. But as Captain Cold says, expect the plan to fail, throw away the plan. So it was just kind of interesting that he was so on board, because other than him confirming where they were, like as far as where the shuttle was or where the shuttle was going, he was really of no use to the rest of them. The only valuable information that he actually supplied was about the Dark Troopers. Other than that, it was like, all right, oh, Dark Troopers, all right, cool. Do we need him for anything? No, all right, toss about the airlock. They could have done. I'm still wondering what happened to Dr. Pershing, because we didn't see him after that, and I don't remember them saying, hey, let's go drop this guy off on Camino. So
He's in a closet somewhere.
yeah, I guess maybe we'll see him, sometime next season on their ship. Who knows?
Right on. Mark, Rob, either one of you guys get any thoughts on?
Yeah, I thought this was a kind of your typical heist scene where they set up and they have the plan and they plan out the heist. And I actually was really impressed because usually I think they managed to do it kind of in a typical way, but it actually really worked for setting the story and giving you the information like you need to know. Like the Dark Troopers take like a couple minutes to warm up, so we gotta like get to them first before they do that and stuff like that, which really helped during the scene. Like I find that a lot of times, and I was just reviewing this horrible episode of Deep Space Nine where they did this heist episode, which they did did this cliche and they totally fucked it up and did such a terrible job at it because there's a certain way that you have to do it to make it fresh and original because it's been done so many times before. And I think this was actually done really well and managed to do that because usually, you plan the heist and either everything goes according to plan, which they don't show you them planning then, or things go wrong. But here, like enough things did go right and a few things did go wrong, but enough things went right, but it was still interesting. It was still intense, even though they had planned for it. So I really enjoyed that about this.
Right on. Rob, anything to add on to that?
Not really too much. I mean, I liked the information we're getting on the Dark Troopers, how they talk about the human element, that we were removing the final weakness from it. I like that. Just shows like the idealism of behind all the would they have eventually have gone to Dark Troopers instead of Stormtroopers. But other than that, I mean, everybody else pretty much covered everything. I mean, Boba Fett's saying, like I'll give you a good show. I mean, I love all his stuff in this. But I guess I'll just say Peyton Reed, who directed this, did a really great job. We didn't really mention that at the top of the episode of the people who wrote or directed this, but I mean, Favreau, who wrote it, was great. It's a great script, but Peyton Reed, who did Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I'm assuming the next Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, did a really good job here. That's all. Well,
that's a good point because Peyton, the first Ant-Man movie was a heist movie too, so he's got experience in these heist stuff.
Nice callback there. Yes. All right, so we've got the plan. It's time to enact at least the beginning of the plan, which involves, of course, using the stolen shuttle, being chased by Boba Fett, running in, landing, and then mowing their way through on their way to the bridge. Not a whole lot with this whole opening bit. I did have one question. That light cruiser design, is that really smart? That's a narrow little way to shoot out the TIE fighters. Now it does look super cool. And it reminds me a little bit of Battlestar Galactica with the launch tubes and stuff like that. So, okay, obviously a little steady going out, but that's the where you land too. And especially those Lambda shuttles that have the folding wings that like you got to fold just in time. And it's like, God, I hope your ship's not too big. I don't know. I mean, it was a great little bit like you're blocking the way for the ships to come out, and it did look cool, but that does not seem to be a very tactically sound design for a cruiser or carrier or anything else. Any thoughts on me? Okay.
Well, I want to say that I'm willing to let little. You're right. Absolutely, you're right. And it is plot convenience to doing it just so because it works for the scene. But because the scene works so well, I'm willing to forgive them and go with it.
Sure. No, I mean,
because
the Empire designed it.
Intense.
Yeah, the Empire designed it. They just took advantage of the design. I'm just like with the Empire. It's like, was this? Man, I hope none of your ties are damaged on the way back. Are they going to take out the whole landing area?
Well, to be fair, the Empire has a lot of questionable designs.
That is true. That is true. Shields on the ties, folks. Shields on the ties. But yeah, okay. So let's get into the attack. Let's sort of jump into that. The assault is we've got Group A, which is going to head towards the bridge and try and take Moff Gideon. Meanwhile, we've got Team B, which is just the Mandalorian, sneaking through the carnage in the back and heading straight for Grogu. Basically, we're the distraction and you're the strike team. The distraction being, as I have fondly put here, Fox Force 4. Why? Because there's stone foxes and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 of them. I love this group. I love the attack. Look, I know I know that Gina Carano has some issues in the world right now from a social media standpoint and things. I don't care. I love seeing people who can fight playing people who can fight. Her, Ming-Na, Katie Sackhoff. I'm sorry, I can't remember the other girl, but a great stunt performer thanks. Great stunt performer inside some costumes there. They looked like they were bowling through people. When they fought, it was awesome. It was a very linear fight for me. A little different from what we saw with the Heiress, which was Bryce Dallas Howard. A lot more tactile, kind of moving, a little more smoothie around, almost more of a kung fu kind of feel to it. Whereas this was much more of a direct frontal assault, boom, 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 push, destroy. Which again, worked for this particular group. Let's kick this off. Rob, let's start with you. What are your thoughts here on our Fox Force 4, our awesome little assault on the carrier? Take it away, any part of that you want.
Oh no, he's consulting his notes. Here we go.
No, I mean, I just want to make sure that talk about the stuff that that I wrote down here. First, I mean, look, I gave this a 10 out of 10, but there were times when I was like, didn't they think to just, put the shields up? Things like that. I thought about, like, this is a really kind of suspicious situation. So I thought that he handled it right with sending out the TIE fighters. So that, that negates plan A. That was kind of going all right. You're right about the design, but I think was it Eric Scott saying in the chats that that's only where they shoot ships from, not where they land. So I don't know what the deal was with that part, actually, now that I think about it. But I love how Boba just dips, but he doesn't just dip. He just immediately turns around and just blasts them like they were nothing. Like he was just playing around, doing his little things, zipping around. They're like, "Are you going to be okay with those deck cannons?" He's like, "I don't care about those. Don't worry about those deck cannons." And he just turns and blasts, takes off, dips. So that at that moment when I realized he was going to take off, I was like, "Oh, thank God. Okay, he's safe. He's safe for the episode." This was like goes to like what Don was saying earlier, like being like happy to be wrong in this situation, because I'm happy to be wrong too, because we were talking about going the more Empire route for this episode. So I'm glad that Boba gets away. The girl combat was a great scene. I'm sure that's the same stunt woman for Ming-Na Wen that was with her for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I would imagine. Mm-hmm. So we get to see more of that kind of combat. I liked the humor that was in there. I liked when the girls think they're surrounded, they just mowed down these troopers. I mean, it was a massacre. It was a pretty big massacre if you think about it. Like they killed a lot of people in the space of a couple of minutes. Not even that. But that was something that I didn't even think about until like way into the fight, where it's like, oh wow, this is all girls. Okay, cool. Don't care. They're kicking ass. It doesn't matter. It's all being really well done. And all these characters have earned their abilities. We've seen what they can do. They're not just walking in and we're just supposed to accept that they can do what they do. We've seen Gina Carano fighting since she showed up. We know that what she's capable of. So everything that these ladies are doing, nobody should be calling foul, that they can just do all this stuff, because we've seen every single one of these actors be physical before as well, not just the characters that they're playing.
Right.
And so it was just a blast, and running all up to Mando having to sneak in by himself. I kind of felt like that was a good reason for how they were explaining things in the plan. So that way we wouldn't just wonder why Mando went out by himself. There's a little bit of just good information. Otherwise we were going, why is he taking so long to get out of the ship? But I'll stop there so we can get on to the next topic or go to the next person.
Yeah. Mark, why don't you pick things up from there? Why don't you pick things up from there?
Yeah, well, don't you know, Rob? Girls get it done. Oh wait, I think that's a different show. But yeah, actually, I didn't even notice it was all women until you pointed it out in your email. I was like, oh yeah, because it's it's not important. It doesn't matter. They're all badasses, and you totally buy it, and it works for the storyline. So yeah, I thought it was pretty damn intense, I must say. So yeah, not much more to add to that.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, when I say Fox Force 4, it's obviously I'm doing a Tarantino reference in the midst of that because it just happens to work. But no, the fact is yeah, it took me the same thing of like going through of like, oh yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, because we don't have Bakshi here. For some reason, he wasn't in the bar that day. He's out doing something else.
There was one more thing I had to say about this, actually, and it's another sort of slight thing as as I was watching this scene, the fact that I think Rob might have mentioned it's the way they're just massacring like tons of stormtroopers and not a single one of them is getting hurt or injured did make me think of like a Schwarzenegger movie or something like that when they're able, or like the Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, when it's just 9 of them, they will take out like 300 orcs or something. But, again, that's the kind of thing, I guess I'm sort of jaded to that for so many action movies like that I'm willing to go with it and be like, whatever, it looks so badass, who cares? Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, when obviously we're showing badassery, especially Ming-Na actually dodging a blaster bolt there, at a moment, which was very cool to see. But I think that would have been something from a choreography wise, would have just added a layer of complexity and would have been cool that you would have had the Mandalorians taking the front so their Beskar can reflect the bolts and we have them. And then as they switch, they would move around. I mean, there's a way they could have done that. But I think they were really focusing on just sort of a direct assault. I'm going to toss this over to you, Don, and I do want a little thought on what you thought of the bridge. Just evil Imperial design or serving some purpose? And do you think the shields should keep the troopers from falling through them as opposed to just letting them drop through? Is this for, I mean, what if like a meteorite just comes through and just sort of knocks somebody off the tower there or the bridge? Anyway, that was just a thought. It was a cool scene, but I was really wondering about that particular design. Dawn, any thoughts on Imperial bridges or anything else on our Team 1 assault?
All right. Well, as you can see, I got my own little mini Grogu that always kind of shows up. First off, these guys, nothing but bantha fodder. Nothing but bantha fodder as always. Listen, I noticed immediately that it was, for women, and I had absolutely no problem with it because it was earned. If you think about the badassery that they have displayed throughout the season, you know that the 4 of them are probably even more capable than Din Djarin is. So for them to go and mow down a bunch of stormtroopers, hey, I'm with it. This was Girls Get It Done correctly. Look, I know that there's still been a lot made about Avengers Endgame and their one kind of girls get it done scene and how cringy that came off because it was like, wait, all right, I'm pretty sure all of you were here before, but this looks kind of weird that all of a sudden you guys got like a mini Avengers Assemble here. All right, whatever. But it works in this context, and yeah, I was kind of surprised about the whole Ray Shields thing too. I mean, I thought that Ray Shields actually held in matter, unless it's only supposed to be, against laser fire, or blaster fire, apparently. Yeah, so that was kind of weird seeing them fall through. But look, I loved the stunt work that was done. Again, Ming Na and whoever her stunt double is, nice kicks and punches and rolls and throws, and I was here for all of it. I'm like, how can we please get a cavalry show, or hey, or even if not, can we get a Fennec Shand show? I mean, well, listen, I'm pretty sure she's gonna be in there with Boba, kicking more ass. So I'm here for it. Let's bring it on. And look, you know what? Yeah, I don't know what Gina Carano's been saying on social media. I don't care. But also personally, I think she should have been Wonder Woman. Unless she's just not tall enough. But hey, listen.
Tom Cruise is 5'6". Okay.
Really? Holy shit! I'm calling the 5 than Tom Cruise. I had no idea. But yeah, it's one of those things where listen, Gina Carano is doing her thing on screen. Katie Sackhoff, who should have been Captain Marvel, doing her thing on screen. We already know Sasha Banks. She's a full-time WWE wrestler, so obviously she's gonna know how to fight. And yeah, this is it was just awesome to see. And I see Devontae Smith is saying the girl scene in Endgame work. Don't believe that the internet will. Don't believe that the internet will let the female scene on the show go without criticism. I mean, listen, I haven't seen anyone say anything or criticize, the fact that you have these 4 women, and I mean, who knows? There might be some dickhead out there who decides, you had all the women doing all of the stuff. Can't believe you just had a little, fuck them, okay? But I'm not saying that the scene in Endgame didn't work, but the way that it was put together just came off a little cringy. That's all. I'm like, hey, listen, all of the characters they shown on screen, you had Okoye, you had Captain Marvel, you had Wanda, you had Gamora, you had damn it, what the hell is his name now? Nebula. Yes. Oh, Valkyrie. Yes, they all kicked ass, but they should have shown them kicking ass throughout the actual movie. So this way, when they show up together at that particular moment, it doesn't look like it just kind of comes out of nowhere. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, well, that's totally true. This was completely earned. And you were right about the aspect that we've seen everybody here kick an incredible amount of ass. So, if you put them together, it's like ass kicking squared, cubed, exponential ass kicking because of all these people together. So, I think that is one of the great things about this particular sequence is because, again, it is earned. We've seen all the individual, we've seen the build up. So when they come together naturally, it all works. It all makes sense. All right. So they're off mowing down stormtroopers, heading to the bridge, mowing down everybody on the bridge, killing everybody. Okay. On the other hand, of course, we've got Mando heading to rescue baby Grogu. So what do we think about? We basically have two primary points of this. We have the encounter with the Dark Troopers, and we have the encounter with Moff Gideon. Those kind of two little parts. Let's start just with the Dark Trooper bit. I'm going to kick this one off because this is where things started kind of turning for me in some ways. Again, I hated the music at this part. It was like some synth nightmare going on. It reminded me of the sci-fi like robot battles that they have and the music they used to set that up with. It just brought me out of it. The idea of the Dark Troopers are great. The fact that they have to charge for a couple of minutes and that charging includes after they have separated from their charging cubicles and have turned together and the bar is still rising up for their timer was a little cheesy. I like that it did just pretty much go down to Mando versus one. I thought that was a good choice. It also made it more dangerous because you could see how much the danger was, but it was very much a Terminator fight. Even the movement of the droid was very slow and robotic in Terminator. And we've seen droids in the Star Wars universe that don't necessarily move all robotic-y and stuff like that. So this is just one of those, while it was certainly cool, and hey, if the Empire ever decided to actually make Stormtrooper armor out of the stuff they make the Dark Trooper armor out of, Stormtroopers would be invincible. Even if they can't shoot you, you at least wouldn't be able to kill them. I don't know. What do you guys think about the Dark Trooper bit? Because this is again the Terminator aspect of it was almost too cheesy for me, even though I did like the fact that we had kind of, Mando up against an equal force, if not stronger force. Mark, let's kick things off with you on this one.
I fucking love this scene. I thought it was absolutely amazing. I mean, I didn't even draw the Terminator comparison to afterwards, but now that you mentioned it, it is very obvious, and I don't blame anyone for making that connection immediately. But I thought it just really worked for the story at the moment, that it really added this element of this ticking clock, and it really made the whole thing much more intense, especially considering that you have one singular Dark Trooper, which the Mandalorian, who's been shown as the ultimate badass of badasses, is having difficulty defeating. And behind this wall, you have like 30 or 20 of how many of them like trying to bust through. It was like a really like horror like moment where you have like all these monsters banging at the door trying to come in, and the way that like the Dark Trooper just banged his head like literally into the wall, like that was like super intense. So I get what you're saying. I see where you're coming from, but I loved this scene. I thought it was amazing. And since this is the second time you mentioned the music, I just want to briefly mention I didn't have an issue with the music. When you complained about the music in your season 1 reviews, I was totally on board. I was totally with you 100%. Like, I think the Western theme they overplay, but the music in this episode I thought was great. I didn't have a problem with it, but that's, again, just me. Anyway.
All right. Very good. Rob, how about you? You were agreeing right there with Mark from what I saw.
Well, yeah, I mean... Like, again, this is going to be the episode, this finale is going to be the I see where you're coming from, but episode that we've done. Because I do see where you're coming from. I do. I just don't care.
No, but that's good. I mean, honestly, that is good. It's important.
Yeah, and I mean that with all due respect. I really do, because it was so intense. He's like, no. Like you can see Pedro's face through it now. we've seen it enough where no, like just trying to get the door closed. The menace that we've had built up talking about these guys. Yeah, it felt very video gamey, like these guys need a little extra time. In the meantime, fight one, and then we're gonna have that fear of fighting more. So yeah, having it close on just the one. First, just the one getting out was scary enough because he's just boom. And again, yeah, I like the synth cheese. I guess I like synth cheese.
Okay.
But so the music was working for me through this whole sequence, and it made me think of Terminator even more. And I'm like, well, if you're gonna do if you're gonna rip somebody off, rip off Terminator. Like go for like the top tier. Don't go for like robot jocks or something like that. So I loved what they did here. The just when he first twists his arm, I went, oh man, like he could rip his arm right off like a gorilla ripping off one of my arms. And it actually felt like there was a danger here, a real threat, where I thought we were starting to head down that road that we talked about last week and even the week before, where I was like, oh, what if this is the moment he just gets the floor mopped up with him and he can't even get to Grogu? Because it really felt like that until he used the Beskar to rip its kind of head off. It really didn't look good. And it's one of the only times in the show where I really felt genuine fear for our character. And it helps being the finale, so you kind of already have that heightened sense of like what's going to happen. This is where they're going to do something. So I just dug every single moment of it. And when he just says, "Nuh-uh, not after that one, all you guys go out." I mean, that was awesome. And then knowing that was just a temporary. He thinks it's a permanent solution. He doesn't realize that it's just a temporary one, but it was still cool in that moment watching the last one bang its head against the wall as it leaves too. It just, you all of a sudden got that sigh of relief, just like as they're getting sucked out, we can finally all go, just like they were exhaling out. It was fantastic.
Awesome. Dawn, any thoughts there, or does Lucky have any thoughts on Dark Troopers?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm going to agree with the other two gentlemen on the panel. Sorry, Darren, you're on your own with this one. Look, I thought the music was appropriate for the scene. And yeah, it might not be classic Star Wars, but Dark Troopers also aren't classic Star Wars. The hero being in this much danger isn't classic Star Wars. So it's one of the things where we got something that was appropriate for the situation. And I'm not sure that it could have been done much better by anyone else, honestly speaking. Now, as far as the fight, we saw Mando pull out everything that he had. The spear was literally the last line of defense. It was like, I've used everything. I don't even know how to use a damn spear, but let's see if this works. I mean, the only thing that he didn't have, I think, the only two things. He didn't have a thermal detonator, and he didn't have a rocket from his jetpack. Those were like the only two things he didn't use.
Yeah, no grenades. I did notice that he didn't toss any grenades in there or anything.
Yeah, so it's one of those. It's one of those things where he's trying to do the best that he can with what he has. And he finally was able to pull out something, a win at the last second.
Yeah.
And I mean, think about it. He was getting his head knocked around. And, I was watching something earlier and they basically were saying the only reason why he didn't have a concussion or broken face bones is because the helmet was pressurized. Had it not been for the fact that the helmet is pressurized, when he took it off at the end, he would be all scarred up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, again, intense scene. We've never seen Mando in this precarious position. Even when he got saved by the other Mandalorians, like during the middle of season 1, it still wasn't this bad for him. He was surrounded, he was trapped, but this was like, dude, no, like, you're here right now. This thing has a hold of you, and unless you can find something of weakness, you're going to die.
Yeah.
So, I love the scene. I had no problem with it.
Another question on Imperial design, though, here. Are purge to space levers standard on Imperial cabins?
I mean, you know what? Purge to space levers might
I mean, I'd buy it. It is Imperial. I'm just, curious if they're all like that.
Yeah, well, it seems as though they're, was it necessarily purge to space, or was it just was just the cargo bay door, right? Because that's where they were stored, was the cargo bay.
They just said they're still put in cold storage because it's too much to power them. I think that's all that they had described the room as. Well, probably a cargo bay, yeah.
No, so it's a regular. I mean, look, they're not thinking that someone is going to break into the ship and then just open the doors while they're in the middle of space. Like, no, I mean, it's a cargo bay. They probably loaded them up from that side, and that's the door that they, that's the
sure,
yeah, the controls to the door. That's all. And that was probably the emergency release.
Okay, like I said, I mean, if it's standard design, they put in the cargo. It was just one of the again. This is what I talk about sometimes about low hanging fruit. All of these things are cool, and I love the fact how much all of you guys love this. Really, my criticisms are not like I'm right, you're wrong, you're right, I'm wrong, or whichever like that. It's merely more the ideas of like, this is a great thing, but why is it there? And the fact that we've got to have a discussion to try and get a justification for it sometimes. But then again, that could just me. I have had no sleep. Maybe my brain's going in all sorts of weird places. All right. Well, obviously, Dark Troopers are finished. Now time to rescue baby Grogu. Well, maybe not rescue quite so quick because, of course, we've got to deal with Moff Gideon standing with a darksaber over Grogu with actually I have no idea what his plan was. And this is the down part of the big speech with the last episode of the warning that I'm coming. While we were hoping that might have some sort of tactical meaning we would learn in this episode, was just tough guy talk, which of course kind of warns your enemy that you're coming. So would make sense that, honestly, I'm surprised Grogu was there. I mean, would Gideon have just grabbed him and like gone across the hallway and hid in a closet? You'll never find me. Was he trying to get to a cabin? Did he just think he'd fight everyone off and stay there? I mean, while I love the sort of standoff sort of idea, it was the question of like, okay, this is badass. And we knew this was going to happen because of the spear. We've never seen Mando carry a long arm in any spaceship. So the moment he's walking around with his Beskar steel, of course, he's going to run into Gideon and have a fight with the Darksaber. It worked great with the Dark Troopers, and that was awesome. But this projected a Darksaber fight. So there wasn't a surprise to me in this move in any way. I do like the fact that Gideon was almost willing to be like, oh, well, yeah, go ahead, take him then. Never mind. I got what I needed. Go right ahead. And we had a cool fight out of it, but yeah, let me know, Don, I'm going to start off with you. What do you think about, you can get into the fight and so on, but really I want to get an idea. Get into Moff Gideon for me. What is his plan? Is this just, we have to have the standoff, and that's what this scene is? It's the beginning of Act 3. Or is there something going on with Gideon that I'm missing?
Okay, so first off, that was not Moff Gideon. That was just Giancarlo Esposito on screen. Pretty much at this point, Giancarlo Esposito in all medium plays Giancarlo Esposito. All right, and so I think he's been wanting to unleash his evil side for a very long time, and started with Gus Fring, and now whenever you see Giancarlo Esposito, just know he is going to be the bad guy. He is going to have, grandiose but underplayed speeches, and that's just who he's going to be. So, look, Moff Gideon's plan. Okay, listen, take out who I can, when I can. I mean, listen, like you said, assume I know everything. He knew, that Mando had thrown everything he had at the Dark Trooper, and the last line of defense was that spear. I'm pretty sure he knew that the Beskar armor wasn't going to be able to be penetrated by the Darksaber, but I think he just wanted to show him, like, yeah, look, I'm a much better fighter than you could possibly imagine that I am. You might think that I'm just some regular, Imperial that you can just come in and knock off like that, but no, I am Moff Gideon. There's a reason why I'm dressed like Darth Vader's apprentice here. So I think it was just a display of, how formidable he actually is. Because not only was he showing him, yes, I am calculating down to the point where I let you believe that your plan was going to work. I let you execute your entire plan only for you to show up right here expecting that you were going to be able to take the child and escape, only for me to be standing over him with the Darksaber. So it's just one of those things where, like when he had first told him, okay, look, I got what I needed from the kid. You can take him, but you must leave my ship immediately. For a brief second, I was like, is it really going to be that easy? For a very brief second, because I'm like, if he doesn't need him, interesting. Because think about it like this. Remember, Bo-Katan wants the Darksaber. Bo-Katan came to the bridge expecting Gideon to be there with the Darksaber. He's not there, and we know that Moff Gideon knows what the Darksaber means to the Mandalorians. So for him to say, all right, well, yeah, like Mando was like, look, I don't care about the Darksaber, I just want the kid. And I think there might have been for a moment where for a brief second where Gideon was like, really? Oh, okay, well, But then he's probably thinking to himself too, yeah, but if I let him go with the kid, they're still going to come back after me. So I'm just going to, try to finish him off now. So this way I don't have to worry about Bo-Katan and anybody else. I'm taking my ship back, even if I'm the only one still left to pilot it. So, like I said, that was my thought for a brief second. And then when they actually did engage, although the Darksaber is not able to just purely cut through Beskar armor, we did see that the spear was beginning to heat up. And there was a moment where I was thinking, like, oh, a couple more seconds of this, that spear gets split in half, and then what does Mando do? I mean, which I'm pretty sure he probably still would have been able to fight him, and he might have even been able to best him at that point. But, just the fact that that spear actually started to look like it was like it could have melted at one point. It was like, oh, okay, this is going to be tenuous. But then when he finally disarms, Gideon, and he's like, oh, you're letting me live. This is going to be interesting because, again, he knows everything. We still don't know what else he knows that hasn't been revealed yet. Remember, season 1, he already knew everyone who was inside of that cantina. He hadn't even laid eyes on them. How in the world do you know who's inside? You know them by name, you know their reputation and everything, but yet you haven't even actually seen them face to face. And now, stepping on to this ship, these guys have executed their plan, meaning killed each and every single living thing, and yet Moff Gideon is standing there like, yes, I already know everything here. So to a certain extent, him losing to Mando might have been a setup. He might have actually lost to him on purpose because, for one, he knows Din Djarin has a code, and two, like, we see what happens later when he explains, what the Darksaber means and what has to be done in order to have the title, because they didn't really explain Mandalore is not just the planet. Mandalore is also the title of whoever is the king or queen of the Mandalorians. So, yeah, I don't want to rant on too much about this, but I just to let you guys know, like, there is so much more that we still have to learn about what Gideon actually knows and what he may have been planning for.
Okay. Well, no, that's actually it's an interesting point. There's been a discussion in the chat while you were doing all of this. Eric Scott, F. Drillashak, a few others mentioning about Devra as well. What was the plan? Thinking that he might be intending to have Bo-Katan fight the Mandalorian, and that's why he lost to Mando. Again, is it that deep? Is it just things happen and he's adjusting as things go on? I love Giancarlo Esposito. You're right. He is always like this big, strong character. Unfortunately, Gideon is starting to feel a little bit, and my daughter, I think, put it perfectly. I'm giving her credit for this quote. When I was describing him, she goes, fear me, for I am knowledgeable and I speak dramatically. And that really is kind of Moff Gideon, because all of his speech is like, assume I know everything. Assume that I know that you've already used the one shot of your whistling birds and that you're here with so-and-so when you're fighting. And I honestly thought that would have been a great alternate scene if he was like, oh, no, it reloads. And just took him out. That would have been like the how it should have ended version of that. But yeah, Rob, let's jump up to you. What were your thoughts on Gideon's fight, his plan, anything like that? I think you hit some nice points there, Don. But Rob, did you have any thoughts, additions you wanted to add on to that?
Well, that was pretty much everything that you can say about it. Just that I kind of feel like his whole attitude felt like he had already won the fight even before the fight started. I feel like his positioning himself, and when, by saying, assume I know everything, which would be he also knows that the Dark Troopers have been jettisoned, but they'll be back. And that no matter what they do, once they return, you're done. So I can let this play out kind of in any way I want, because like like Don said, he knows about the Mando's code. He knows about the whole power struggle with the dark saber and what, fighting Mando and losing means. The only thing that was the crack in his whole thing, I think, really was when the X-Wing shows up. And that when you saw him, he realized his plan was done. That's the only thing I can really add, is that he really felt like that confident. That as much as you could say that, how much did he really know, or was he winging it? I kind of feel like he's a little bit of both. Also, how does he know all this information? Who's the person giving him the information? And the only person I can think of is Carl Weathers' character. And I know that makes you like, you might go, whoa, well, who else would it be that was close enough to Moff Gideon to say, this is exactly who's in that bar, and this is who's coming after you now, and I don't know, maybe trying to play both sides of things is kind of in his nature anyway. We've seen him be a good, honorable person. He likes the kid and all that stuff, but I think, maybe with a little extra pressure, a lot of characters, I mean, look at Lando Calrissian turned on Han, because they showed up right before you did. So, he could be one of those guys who doesn't want anything bad to happen, but maybe that's who it is. Maybe that's where he's getting all his information. Other than that, I mean, I think Don covered it pretty well.
Yeah, I think those were great points. Mark?
All right, so I want to give my honest opinion here. When I first was watching the scene, I thought that Darth Gideon's plan was genius. I thought that because it seemed like because he knew, like, again, I think you mentioned, Darren, earlier that the Mandalorians was a bit of an idiot to send him the message, because that just clued him into the fact that he was coming for Grogu. So when this attack happened, like, he knew the Mandalorian was there behind it. And so instead of staying on the bridge where they expected him to be, where Bo-Katan expected them to be, he was sitting there waiting for the Mandalorian to show up to rescue Grogu, because he knew that would happen. And I think that he honestly thought he could defeat the Mandalorian. And to be fair, you see that he had a really good shot of doing so. And I thought this whole fight scene was really badass. But I feel like he had a sort of a master plan, because his master plan is, even if he is defeated, then there's still the fact that the Mandalorian wins the Darksaber. And that's also one of the main reasons Don mentioned this earlier, that why he wasn't on the bridge is because he wanted to rob Bo-Katan. And of course, we see him play into this as a master manipulator, trying to get Bo-Katan to attack the Mandalorian because he had the Darksaber. So I actually thought it was a brilliant plan. And I think, Darren, your sort of observations or complaints about this being sort of a master manipulator speech, bad guy, muhaha, would be valid if it was any other actor other than Giancarlo Esposito. I think he totally sells it. Like, I saw this article, I think I showed you earlier, Darren, where it's like an Onion article where it's like there's like a random person watching a TV show saying, oh, Giancarlo Esposito is showing up, tells viewers that the main character is totally fucked now, because it happens every time. And he really sold it. Like, his whole speech, the way he was talking, was like, assume I know everything. I'm just, the whole time I'm thinking, fuck, it's Gus Fring fucking things up again. Like, I loved it. I thought it was great. And I actually thought it was quite actually an ingenious plan, personally, but that's just me.
Look, I cannot say anything bad about Giancarlo Esposito. Moff Exposition is a fabulous, threatening character who thankfully lets us know about everything that's going on. That's the whole rest of his job, the whole speech about the Darksaber. I don't know. His job this whole episode was to be menacing and give us backstory. And yes, he does it very, very well. But it is a lot of exposition. Rob, did you have an addition onto that?
Well, just also, I mean, he's one of the few, the proud, they get to say that, you know, like the Darksaber's still a saber, man. I mean, he got to have a legit fight with the Mandalorian. It's gonna go up there, like when people say what are the best fights in the Star Wars universe, this is gonna definitely be put to people's lists, some people's lists. And if I'm Giancarlo Esposito, I mean, oh my gosh, getting to go to bed at night every night knowing you got to have like an epic fight, even no matter what the context is, no matter what the nerds are going to be talking about later on, this is something you get to go to bed at night and go, I got to be in a lightsaber fight. It's Giancarlo Esposito. I mean, the only other person I would want to see, like if we're going down the Breaking Bad point, was if, you know, all of a sudden, you know, Bryan Cranston shows up as like some anti-hero, like in season 3, and he's like, I'm gonna build Mando a whole bunch of cool. I'm gonna build Mando's new ship, like he built Cars and Drive or something. And you know, I don't want to go down too far the rabbit hole here, but like I'm just saying, like Giancarlo Esposito, man, as much as he was, you know, giving us information and delivering speeches and stuff like that, he also got that. He also got to be sniveling, snively, cowardly, scared. He got to run the gamut of emotions here. He even suicidal. So I mean, I'm not contradicting you at all. I just want to.
I would give my left nut to be in his feet for 5 minutes. So yeah, that's.
Is there anybody that's going to be considered like? Because I consider Giancarlo Esposito like one of the best villainous actors around, and I mean he's owned pretty much the last 20 years as far as like when you got a guy like him, like when you put him in something in the last 20 years, he is the guy, one of the people you highly remember way up at the top of everything that he's in. Even when he was on freaking Once Upon a Time, I remember that he was the mirror in that show. And even when he was the mirror, I was riveted. Okay. So it's just, this guy can do anything. I mean, even if he was a mirror, even if Moff Gideon turned out to just be a guy talking through a mirror, I'd be like, yep, yeah, he could take over the universe. No problem. Sorry.
Hey, casting is like 90% of the job right there. If you cast the right person, then the character comes to life. And yeah, there are reasons why these people get cast. Okay. I think that we have gotten through all of the kind of big stuff. Obviously, he's captured, taken to the brig. We get the whole exposition about what's the story of the Darksaber. You have to win it in battle. Are they going to drag him away? Is it all over with? No, the Dark Troopers return en masse, ready to take them down. This is when we get to our big reveal. Yes, Deborah, you have been waiting very patiently for us to get to this point. So I'm going to lead this part off. Because, look, I love Luke Skywalker. Love. Look, Return of the Jedi was my favorite movie growing up. My favorite Star Wars. I was 11 years old when it came out. I was in the prime range. I mean, that's me. That's my Star Wars. 5 to 11 Star Wars with some Raiders of the Lost Ark shoved right in the middle there. Okay. I saw this movie in theater so many times, my mother refused to allow me to go see it anymore. I have a very bad opinion of The Big Chill, specifically tied into being forced to watch that movie instead of another Return of the Jedi visit. So Luke, especially in this era, is all me. I mean, this is my childhood coming to life. So please understand where I'm coming from when I say I hated this choice. Hated. Hated. And I know everybody disagrees with me. And I know all of the nostalgia that it pulls up. And let's be honest. Right now, we could all use a little light Luke Skywalker. I mean, let's be honest. With everything going on, there is a perfection in him coming up and being like, he's still there. But as we saw the X-Wing, and I'm like, who is this? Oh. Then we see the lightsaber, and I love the stuff through the security cameras where we just see the flashes and a couple of guys taken out, and then it's gone and moved, and I love that. Then we see the green lightsaber and the glove, and I know where everybody goes, is it? And I went, how are they going to pull this off? I'm sorry, it's how my brain thinks, because when we get to the end and he stands up and he pulls it off and somebody just Voldemorted his face on the back of Quill's skull there, I can't do it. I can't buy it. It looks like CGI. It looks fake. You've put a cartoon in front and you have committed to that. There are so many other choices that could have happened right here. I mean, look, if you wanted to dive into fandom, Corran Horn, X-Wing pilot, Rogue Squadron, and a ton of books. You've got Rogue Squadron coming up. You could have had another Jedi come in live action. Would have been interesting, a storyline to follow. Now, not only do we have the CGI face, which to me is just distracting. I can't not see it. But there is a whole storyline in history you have now attached to try and figure out what happens with Grogu. Where does he fit into his storyline? How do we not hear from him before? Is he involved in the whole school that happens with Ben Solo down the road? Are they going to throw all of that off? There were options before, and now they have locked themselves into things. And between that and the CGI, it really just made me sad. Again, because, and I would have loved for it to be, and if they found a way to make it work, it would have been awesome. But all I saw was a cardboard cutout of Luke Skywalker there in a robe with a voice that didn't sound like him entirely, that didn't match with the mouth movement all of the time. I really just wish they had made a different choice. So I know everybody is freaking out in the chat and I see everybody else. I'm going to turn this loose to you guys because that is my reaction. And I wish I felt different. I really do. Who wants to pick it up now?
I need to start this. Look, man. I mean, you literally just ripped out my heart and Michael Flatley'd all over it, you know. But with Terminator, with the T-800 exoskeleton, you know, wrapped in Predator armor. Okay, look, you know, me and the gentleman here had some differences of opinion a few years ago as to the portrayal of Luke Skywalker in a movie that I absolutely hate so much that I refuse to see the sequel to it. Okay? So for me, you know, Luke Skywalker was, you know, pretty much my hero growing up. I remember watching Empire Strikes Back, that thing that he's got right there, the poster right there, right? I remember watching Empire Strikes Back for the first time, and I saw it later. You know, I didn't get to see it in the movies. I was too young for that. So I watched it on HBO. I was about maybe 5 years old, and I just remember thinking to myself when Darth Vader says to Luke, "No, I am your father." It was one of those moments like, wait, you can do that? The bad guy can be the good guy's father? And then watching, Return of the Jedi after that and thinking to myself, look, this man was willing to sacrifice everything to prove that his father still had good in him. He was willing to sacrifice the entire galaxy to prove for a moment that one of the most evil men in the galaxy could be turned to good again. So when the X-Wing shows up, and we've been talking about this for a while now, ever since it was first, ever since last season when they said, "Hey, all right, you got to take him to the Jedi," right? And we're all thinking, okay, this is a few years after Return of the Jedi. Who's still out there? And the one thing we were thinking is, no way in hell could it ever possibly be Luke. They're never going to do that, like because they can't, CGI, recast, whatever. You can't do it. So when the X-Wing shows up, it's like, okay, is it Ezra? Because we saw Ahsoka earlier. Maybe it's Ezra Bridger. Is it Cal Kestis? Because, if you've played damn it, the name of that damn game, Fallen Order, Jedi Fallen Order. You know that Cal Kestis is still kind of kicking around. Is it Ahsoka? Because Ahsoka was a Jedi. Maybe they showed her in the recap. And so I'm there, and when the lightsaber is flying around and knocking off these troopers, it's like, okay, whoever this is, they're badass. And then you see Black Glove. Could it be? And then you see green lightsaber holding, being held by Black Glove. And I'm like, I was sitting here, and to mind you, again, we're talking at this point 3:30 in the morning for me. 3:30 in the morning. I hadn't even went to sleep from before. So it's not like I woke up fresh. No. I had my cat sitting next to me. I had my other cat across the room. And I'm like, no freaking way. This is not possible. There is no way possible that they are doing this right now. And, this was the thing, my friend, when I had been arguing with you a couple of years ago about wanting to see Luke in his glory. This was the thing that I had been waiting since Return of the Jedi to see. And so, while I do understand, and yes, I was taken aback and disappointed because, yeah, they should have just used Sebastian Stan. We all know what he would look like as Luke. We've seen the Photoshop. They could have done it. I was taken aback, yes. But goddamn it, it's Luke fucking Skywalker, okay? I've been waiting since I was 5 years old to see Luke Skywalker be Luke fucking Skywalker. I don't care, okay? I don't freaking care. It doesn't matter. It's Luke Skywalker. I got to see my hero be the damn hero that that I've only read about in comic books and played in video games and read about in novels for like 30-something years. I don't care that he's a fucking cartoon. It's Luke fucking Skywalker. Luke Skywalker. God damn you.
All right, we see that the nostalgia button works really well with Dawn. But I feel you. Again, I so feel where you were coming from. And I know we get to see a little more lightsaber stuff than we've seen from him before, too. I know that excited a lot of people as well. So, I mean, again, I feel you. I really do. Mark, thoughts?
Okay, so I gotta give my honest opinion here. I would be lying if I said I didn't feel any nostalgia at Luke reappearing, because of course I did. Of course I feel nostalgia. Of course it was great to see this character again. But in all honesty, that's not the main reason why I love this scene so much. I love this scene so much, mostly because, I mean, God damn, it was so great to see him kick ass with the Dark Trooper. But I love this scene so much because I think it works so well for the story. In fact, I think it works so well for the story that had they not had Luke showed up, I thought it would have been contrived writing. I thought the writers would be going out of their way not to include Luke because it seemed so natural that this is absolutely what needed to happen, because you got Grogu, who's a very important Force-sensitive character, like arguably one of the most important ones around. He survived Order 66. He's been in hiding, and they just found him for the first time, and he reaches out to the Jedi for help. So to me, it would make absolutely no sense whatsoever if the Jedi who showed up to retrieve him was not the most important Jedi around. I actually think it was brave of the show to go in this direction, because they rightfully knew using a really known character like this was a risky thing, and not everyone would be on board with it. And I think the way they did it, I thought was very tasteful. It was just, to me, it depends on how you define fan service. The way I typically define fan service is you have something that's just there to appease the fans, and it doesn't work for the story. It makes no sense for the story. In fact, it actively interferes with the story, and it's just there to go, ha, see, remember this guy, which the show has done before. But I don't think that this was, in that sense, fan service, because I think it makes so much sense for the story. I think that it was like so well earned, and I think it gives such a sort of happy ending that makes all the sense in the world. So I was actually I thought it was a brave move for them to do this. Now, as far as the CGI goes, I think it was Deborah in the chat earlier mentioned that they thought they didn't even notice the CGI. And I got to be honest, I'm that way too. I didn't. Maybe the resolution on my TV isn't that great, or didn't have my glasses on, or whatever when I was watching it. But I didn't notice any different. I went back and saw like screenshots online. I was like, okay, I can notice the CGI, but it didn't throw me out of it. I thought maybe it would have been better had they recast, but it didn't completely bother me that they did do de-aging CGI, just because I just thought it worked so incredibly well in this moment for the story, and I just thought it was a perfect ending. Now, as far as what does this mean for the future of Grogu, is Grogu going to get killed by Ben Solo? Honestly, I hope the answer to that is that they're just going to erase those sequel trilogy from canon. But even if they don't, it doesn't necessarily mean that. Grogu survived Order 66. There's no reason why if he can survive that, he can survive fucking goth, emo fucking Ben Solo. So I don't think it necessarily means that I don't necessarily means they're locked in anything. I think they can still go in a myriad of directions. And honestly, I get the impression and that this will be the only appearance of Luke in the show. And I think it should be. And I think if it is, it will remain like a perfect gem, and they shouldn't mess it up by having him more. And judging by just the respect and the way that they sort of treated like the main material, mostly staying away from it, I get the impression that really is the direction that they're going in. So personally, I loved it. I thought it was perfect.
Well, you actually start to hit onto a lot of points, and I want to hear from Rob before we get into it, because that does, in a way, this does tie in directly into where we think the show is going to go, where can it go, and what are the expectations with that. So, I mean, that is a very natural transition, and if you want to move into that, you can, Rob, but I definitely want to hear from you on the Luke Skywalker reveal. He also, again, you got some nice Jedi lightsaber action going on, which I know a lot in the chat we're all very excited to see. Thoughts, opinions on the appearance of our favorite Jedi Master?
Well, to talk about this and kind of to maybe get into a little bit of why you feel this way a little bit, not just the CGI, but I mean, we talked about in great length where we thought this finale was going and where we wanted it to go, and prediction wise and stuff. And so far, I mean, we were already like Boba Fett was fine, so that was one thing down that we were that wasn't going to happen. The down note ending was honestly what I was gunning for, and when I could feel it going the other way, I started to get a little like, are they really going to go for this kind of good, happy, like a little misty-eyed or whatever? Like, are they literally setting this up for like just a perfect ending? But I let that go once I saw the X-Wing show up. Because we discussed like earlier, way back with the Ahsoka episode, like why didn't you just say Luke Skywalker's the guy you want? Like, she would know that this guy's, he's blown up 2 Death Stars. Well, he's been key to 2 Death Stars blowing up. I think Ahsoka Tano would know who he was. So it made sense that, this guy who somebody in the chat was saying actively looking for Jedi would be the person to show up. Did I actually think it was going to be him right away, though? I was kind of waiting with bated breath like everybody else. Like, are they actually doing it? Yeah, there's the green lightsaber. There's the glove. Which honestly, I was having such a weird time watching it that I didn't catch the glove right on the first viewing, because I was just like watching a Jedi, and that was Mark Hamill. I mean, so we got to see Mark Hamill and if this is the only time, he got to be Luke being a badass, even if he had the hood on, because you could see that some of the combat was like a little slower, but like just real finesse. That I thought, not only is this a great moment for us, but for Hamill as well, to get to do this and have this scene and just destroy all these guys. Now, to be completely honest, when he put the hood up, I did kind of react like you did. I was a little disappointed, but I had a conversation with somebody today about Rogue One and the Tarkin and Leia stuff.
Yeah, good. And
I honestly just started thinking, I was just like, you know what? I just don't care. If it works for the story, if it makes sense for the story, then that's where that's what needs to happen. It makes sense that it's Luke, and we didn't think that they would do it. And for once, the show, like, unlike Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right, where we had a lot of like really grandiose finale plans, what they gave us was way standard, and our ideas were way better, in my opinion. For the most part, it's still good, But that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But here, they subverted our expectations in the way that we really didn't think they had the balls to do.
It's true.
And I just let it go. As soon as I saw him and I went, for a second, I went, I don't care. It's Luke Skywalker. This is the guy that I've been, like Don said, I was 8 when Return of the Jedi came out. We had one VHS tape in our house. It had 3 movies on it. Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Rocky IV, and Return of the Jedi. And we watched that tape so much. We even once watched it backwards in rewind. So we've been waiting. I've been waiting. I've read about all these books. I mean, I've read all the books in the 90s, reading about how badass Luke is, reading how complicated he, like getting everything set up and creating this whole new world after Jedi was. And so when you get to see him in this moment, it's like every single thing that I wanted in Star Wars was suddenly right in front of my face. And yeah, I guess, you know, it could have been real easy for me to turn away from it, like in horror, kind of like you kind of describe it where you're just like, like I get it. Like I can see why people, because the Rogue One had the same kind of reactions. But I just put and it's not just nostalgia. It made sense for the story because I had been bringing it up before. I just didn't think they were going to do it. I literally didn't think that this was going to be like where we push pause on Grogu. He goes off with Luke. And the Mandalorian now deals with the political intrigue of the Darksaber and who's going to hold the rights to Mandalore and how do we deal with all that for season 3. Because I wondered how long were we going to be going along with this shtick of him traipsing the kid around the galaxy trying to find his people. And so I think this was the perfect time in the end this is a part of the journey and it's ending. It's all still going. It's called The Mandalorian. So he's going to still going and he's still going on this journey. And this is just the end of the first start, the first part of it. And I don't think Grogu's gone. I do hope that, like Mark was saying, this is the last time we see Luke. Fine. I'd be fine with them in a limited capacity. We don't want anything to be taken over by, this camera. This is a perfect moment. We don't want it to just suddenly get sanitized by seeing it all the time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so again, and they were really careful with how much he even spoke. It was very mysterious going into this whole thing, and that closing of the door at the end. How freaking perfect Star Wars is that to end right at the boom
on a wipe,
and the wipe, and also oh my God, there's so much to say about this still. Grogu meeting R2. R2 was on Coruscant when Order 66 was going on, right? Wasn't he? It seemed almost like he knew Grogu. That's speculation theater here. But
hey, speculation's good.
Well, we keep trying to figure out how Grogu got out. There seemed to be a really long exchange between Grogu and R2. R2 kind of starting up and then getting more and more excited as they're looking at each other. So I don't know. That really intrigued me quite a bit. And then Mando taking off his helmet. I mean, I guess maybe I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but
no,
that was a beautiful moment of.
I
the way that they did the puppeteering on Grogu's face of seeing Mando's face, the reaction on the how they were able to show emotion through just this weird little puppet. Again, I haven't seen stuff like that since they first introduced Yoda. You really felt something, even if he is this little animatronic. It just. Yeah, it almost floors you. It gets you choked up, and it just, again, this is just a perfect moment of television here, folks. And as much as I could criticize it, there are things that I want to like that, like you said, you're the voice of reason over here. Like you do have it all
down.
No, I don't think you're bringing it down, man. You're bringing it real. Like you were not letting it off the hook just because you like it so much, and I appreciate that. And normally I'd probably be the guy cheering you on for this kind of stuff, but for some reason, and it's not just nostalgia, it all just makes sense when I sit back and I look at it. And if the worst thing in that moment was the CGI face, then that's not, for me, that's nowhere near a deal breaker. But it also raises a whole lot of new questions that, we'll have to get into probably later. But
yeah, well, I mean, but I think that does kind of get into that point. And yes, the emotional goodbye between the two of them, it was perfect. It was sweet. There's a reason why that is the thumbnail for this discussion, is because this is what we're all going through, and having that little connection and the emotion there. If you weren't crying, you are a freaking death trooper, dark trooper. But this does bring up a lot of questions. Now, obviously, one character we know what happened, or two characters we know what happens to them, and we will get to them before we wrap this up, since it is a post-credit scene. But I did want to talk just really briefly about where you think we are going to go. Because, look, everybody loves Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda makes up for a lot of things. My wife is watching this and she'll laugh at the cheesiness and go on to be like, oh my God. And then Baby Yoda shows up. Oh, but Baby Yoda. I love Baby Yoda. And yes, she still calls him Baby Yoda and not Grogu. So can you have Mandalorian without Grogu? Is it the Mandalorian, or is it the Mandalorian and the Grogu show? Because I would argue that losing Grogu is going to lose a part of this particular show. But how do you get them back also? I mean, do we start off next year that looks like, I can't teach him, take him back, and just undo everything we just did? I mean, that's not good. Do we have two stories where we have Luke training Grogu? Well, then we get more CGI Luke. And again, do we really want to see that? Or, is that the best choice for them to do? Or do we put Grogu aside for a season and focus on the Mandalorian political drama and the Darksaber and retaking Mandalore? Or do we mix these up? I mean, and so that's what I'm really trying to throw out. And that was one of the things we're ending this, while it was a great ending and it sort of wrapped up the storyline, it did make me question, well, where do we go from here? What is the plan? Because you can't just undo what you just did and take out the emotion from that. On the other hand, it's not like you can replace Grogu. So, Don, Don, we'll start off with you on this one as well. What are your thoughts on where we go from here? And then if anybody else has anything while he's chatting, just go ahead and throw that in. This is really more of an open speculation idea here.
All right. So, obviously there are going to be some people who are going to be like, okay, I'm done. Right? They're like, yeah, I was in for the child. The child is gone. So, look, we've already got people asking, is this the end of the show? I'm like, forgetting about the whole thing that just got set up before Luke Skywalker showed up. For me, I'm here for the political intrigue. I mean, think about how well political shows have done over the past 10 or so years, right? And I think that, as much as Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace were like pretty much lambasted for them delving into the political, I think that, look, you got Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau overseeing this, and anyone who has watched Clone Wars knows that Star Wars and politics can be done correctly. It's best to be done over a long form rather than trying to cram it into a 2-hour movie. I think, I saw something earlier today where it was saying that 2-hour movies should be for events, and the TV show should be done for long form development. And so, like, for example, Battle of Endor, an event which is fit for a movie, the whole thing with pod racing and, the Galactic Senate and all that should have been saved for a TV show. And then maybe like the Sith returning and the reveal of that being the event, right? So I think that what they've set up for the next season, with obviously Bo-Katan being someone who wants to be the ruler of Mandalore, but can't do it because now this guy who is a foundling is technically the rightful ruler because he defeated the person who had the Darksaber in combat, and now he holds the Darksaber. I think that this is a perfect way for them to delve into the Mandalorian culture, because now we can see the different clans. We can see, the Children of the Watch, maybe where they came from. Are they an offshoot of Death Watch, right? Is Death Watch still a thing? What's the deal with the Night Owls? What clans? Because Bo-Katan said, hey, I'm from Clan Kryze. I'm the last of my line. You got Clan Vizsla. I'm not even sure if Clan Vizsla is even still around. You got Clan Ren. So maybe Sabine might actually show up in the next season, because there have been rumors about Sabine showing up in this one, and obviously she didn't. So there's a lot that can be done in terms of showing more of the Mandalorian culture and just seeing where does Din Djarin fit into this. Is he going to be the guy that at the end, is this going to be the thing that strengthens him and binds him more to the Mandalorian culture? Or is this going to be something that makes him jaded on the Mandalorian culture and makes him say, you know what, this ain't worth it? So I think that's where we're going with it, and obviously we're set up for more Moff Gideon, because, again, Moff Gideon still has information that we need, and they've already said it that him being ISB,
Giancarlo's in
right.
season 3.
Well, but they've already said that him being ISB means that the New Republic's going to want information out of him, right? And now we've set up a Bo-Katan versus Din Djarin kind of thing, where it's, who is he? He's a foundling. There's going to be people who are going to be coming at him left and right for the simple fact that he was not born a Mandalorian, right? It's not just going to be Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan is just the first one because she's the last one to hold the Darksaber. But best believe there are going to be other people who are going to be like, oh, no, a foundling. And he didn't even beat a Mandalorian to get the Darksaber. He beat some former Imperial to get the Darksaber. No. So that's going to be interesting as well.
Right. So you're thinking really they're definitely going to be leaning more into the whole Mandalorian, Bo-Katan, the world, the culture. That's going to be a bit more of their focus going into 3. Okay, I can see that.
But and the other very last thing before I end, it's also going to be finding the other Mandalorians as well, because remember, He has no idea where to look, but she does.
Okay. Rob, any thoughts there on where we're going? Do you think it's going to be the Mandalorian show, which again, it is the Mandalorian, or do you think they need Grogu?
Well, I mean, look, there's gonna be the people that the show's just not the same without Baby Yoda, and that's fine because it won't be the same show. But like any good band or TV show or movie series, you got to evolve. You know, some things some people like no matter what. Like, how many seasons does NCIS have? They got the old people. They don't care. It can be the same thing every freaking week, right? But for this, they can't do that. You have to change. You have to evolve. You have to show more than just this. And like I said, the Grogu stuff, we got so super attached to the whole thing, but it's just the first step in Din's journey. Now, we're talking about the politics and everything that goes along with who's holding the dark saber and all that. But one of the things I think that this show has been good at is because there's no trailers, is proving us wrong and going in directions that we don't think they're going to go. And so they could really easily in the first episode of the third season. Speaking of which, the Boba Fett season, it's not going to be Mandalorian season 3. Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett, that comes out in December. Next December, it's going to be its own thing, which I think means that we'll get Mando season 3, and then just like The Walking Dead would do, have Fear going right into it. When that ended, we'd have the Book of Boba Fett happening right at the end of Mandalorian season 3. And maybe start their whole thing with like always having Star Wars, always having Marvel, something going concurrently. But with season 3, they could just literally in the first episode resolve the Darksaber thing. They could just literally go, we're going to a place to fight and get it done with. It could be that simple. It probably won't. It probably won't be that simple. They might even stretch it out a little bit. But I don't think that we're really going to spend. I think that we're going to still see our standalone episodes that we've been seeing since season 1 and 2. There have been things in little adventures. I think we're still going to see all of that kind of stuff, little adventures where everybody's, doing new things. And I don't think it's going to be that. I think they're always going to give us something to at least distract us from the lack of the child. They're going to give us there's so much potential. There's so much potential for this show because what it's been doing really great is setting up other shows and still being good at their show.
True.
So there's Moff Gideon to deal with, and the Darksaber, and Bo-Katan, and what does Mando do without Grogu? All those things are there, but they're also going to give us really interesting, fun stories that aren't really going to connect to anything except to further the journey of our main character. And that's, as far as like, where do I think they're like anything other than that, where we're going for this show, I think that that's more possible than just thinking that we're only going to deal with that. I don't think we might not see Grogu at all next season. And I think that that's something people got to get prepared for. Or it'll be, these are only 8 episodes. He could show up at the end of episode 8, something like that, reposition himself. But like, I think Mando needs to see what the world is like without worrying about the child. So first he has to kind of wean himself off that responsibility and then let him grow more as a character so that when they do reunite, they're both different characters. They've both been through something, except we might not see or understand where Grogu, what the journey Grogu has been on more than the Mandalorian. Because like I said, I don't think he's going to be gone for good. I think it's just a time to press pause on that and move on to other things. Because I'm just excited to see what they're going to do on a week-to-week basis. Because every week it's been something new, and every time we've had an episode where we weren't sure we were going to have much to talk about, we had no problem. We had no problem. We could have gone on longer and longer and longer. Like, we're talking about a 45-minute episode, and we're at 2:09 here. And I'm still going strong. There's still so much we could talk about. So as far as I'm concerned, the show is on the right track. And as long as they just keep with this kind of winning formula that I liked in the Clone Wars, and they just keep doing what you're doing, man. Don't give in to just fan service, because I think Devontae in the chat said, this has been called the Mandalorian, not the Mandalorian and the Child.
Yeah. All right. Okay, cool. Well, no, I mean, I like that everybody is like, no, let's go. Mark, are you with them? You ready for Grogu to step to the side, or do you think he's needed?
Okay, well, so here's the thing. Like when I first saw the ending and that Grogu was going off with Luke, my first thought was, is the show going to be any good without Grogu? And I had to think about this, and I was like really concerned because to be honest, like he was the main reason why I've liked the show for the first 2 seasons, like his through storyline and Mando's like mission. And in fact, some of the episodes that didn't deal with him as much and were just Mandalorian going on the side quest, I didn't really care for. I was more for when they got back to the main storyline with Grogu. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought that they kind of exhausted this storyline and that it's actually time for it to end. That had they kept him on the show, it would have just been getting a bit repetitive. And we gotta find Grogu, we gotta find your home, kind of like how Sam Beckett keep looking for his home, but he never got there, which I got tired. So I actually, when I thought in those terms, I thought it was really smart that to end it, and I thought that was a powerful ending and a great way to end it. So I'm actually hoping at this stage that Grogu doesn't return. Maybe at least not for a long time. And I think maybe it would be cool if he returned in a show that was taking place in a future time period where we got to see adult Grogu. I think that would be quite amazing. But as far as season 3, I gotta be honest, they are gonna have to win me back because they are basically, I mean, they set up the storyline with Bo-Katan and I am there for it, and Moff Gideon's still out there and all that, but they are gonna have to sort of win me back a little bit to sell me a show without Grogu. But I'm confident that they will be able to do it. So I'm just being open-minded for that. Like, I don't think, the show's going to suck. No, they don't have Grogu, but I think it will be sort of a reinvention. They're going to have to reinvent the show a little bit, which is good. I think every show should, as Rob was mentioning earlier, just got to stay fresh. It's got to move on. You can't just be a NCSI and have the same exact fucking episode every week. So I'm there for it. So yeah, so I'm open-minded, and I'm sure they'd be able to do something interesting in season 3.
Well, I mean, honestly, if anything, if the show has proven to you that you don't know what they're going to do, but you kind of trust that they're going to figure something out that you'll go with it. I mean, what more can you ask from a show? I mean, I think that was one of the things with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yes, of course, we hit back on that a lot because it's also, part of Marvel, which is part of Disney, and it's all one giant happy family now. But the fact that often it would go in like, I have no idea where they're going to go, but I know that they're going to take me on a good journey. And I think if you have a show that can do that, that's amazing. And obviously, this has been such a hit for Disney. They are spinning off 1,000 new Star Wars shows along with 1,000 Marvel shows. We will always have something going on. One of which is hinted forward in the very first post-credit scene. I mean, if you want to talk, taking a cue from Marvel here. On what to expect from 2 of our characters. Now, Don had speculated perhaps this was going to be Boba's death and Slave One would become Mando's new ship. That didn't end up being the case. No, Slave One returned to our 2-sun planet Tatooine to visit somebody who I thought was long dead, Bib Fortuna. I thought he died on the barge with Yoda. I'd have to actually go back and rewatch return. It has been a while since I've seen it. Maybe he got pissed off and he got left at the base here while everything else went on. But basically, Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, taken over, and now we get a promise of Christmas 2021, the Book of Boba Fett. Now, while sure I had some issues with the CGI, and yes, while I love the episode, I did some issues with it. I don't think there was anyone I had heard of at any point that wasn't hooping and hollering and super excited about where this could go. We had heard that there was a Boba Fett series. I had heard rumors that it was sort of a prequel. It was what happened between Return of the Jedi and him showing up at the beginning of chapter 9 here. This seems to imply they're going from this point. Of course, they could do a Lost type situation and mix flashbacks in, which honestly would be an interesting storytelling technique for Star Wars to adopt. But yeah, let's toss this out as we wrap up our big season finale review here with the reveal of this particular next chapter of the Star Wars saga or expanding world, the Book of Boba Fett. Mark, you have any thoughts on Boba Fett's journey here?
Well, I kind of mentioned before we started that I'm actually not all that excited about this show. The prospect of the show. I'm not like, I don't think it's going to suck. I don't think it's going to be terrible, but I'm just not like hooping it like up and down. I can't wait for it because I don't know. Again, I think they're going to have to earn sort of my respect. Like I'm definitely going to watch the show. But I'm just not gonna just assume it's gonna be awesome. I think they're gonna have to get me on board again. Why does this character deserve his own show? Because I know a lot of people love Boba Fett, but from my perspective, he had like one or two lines in the movie trilogy and then fell into the Sarlacc pit. So I'm sort of and plus with the Mandalorian, like I'm thinking he's the badass now. So I'm more interested in him now than Boba Fett. Although but I do like how they built him up over these past couple episodes. So I'm willing to give it a try. I'm on board, and so I got no expectations. I'll just see what they do with it. And yeah.
Excellent. Don, what about you? Are you excited to see Boba Fett return? And more than that, Ming-Na Wen, big Star Wars fan, just wanted one little role. Now she's got her own freaking show. What do you think about that?
Well, listen, again, so happy to be wrong. We heard about, there was the rumor of a Boba Fett prequel show, and when it wasn't announced with the whole Disney investor call, it was kind of like, oh, man, all right, I guess that's not happening. So, yesterday morning, when I'm sitting there watching this episode, I don't know, like, I think just from being in shock of the fact that Luke Skywalker showed up, I just didn't, when it got to the credits, I was like, just like, wow. And then also not seeing the normal artwork after, it was kind of like, something about this is different. So I stayed, and I was like, oh, wait, Jabba's Palace. What are we doing at Jabba's Palace? I mean, are they going to show Luke again? And then once the blaster fire starts to go off, I'm like, oh no, Boba Fett is here. Why is Boba Fett here? And then very, very, and we talked about this on Twitter, very Conan-like, after he shoots Bib Fortuna and sits on the throne, very King Conan kind of thing going on there. And I'm like, hey, listen, you know what? I'm here for it. Now, Yeah, I think they're probably going to wind up doing more of the Lost format because you remember they were supposed to do an underworld show, right? And they were also supposed to originally do a Boba Fett show. And so people have been stating that that the Mandalorians what became of the Boba Fett show, but I think no, they decided okay, we're gonna do Boba Fett, we're gonna do Underworld, meld them together, and boom, Book of Boba Fett. And for everyone thinking that the Mandalorian is now done, I would say no. You know, this is going to be probably, if not a one-off series, then maybe a pilot series to where they do this season of Boba Fett, and then they decide whether or not they're going to do more. And listen, I have all confidence in Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. They have not led us astray thus far. And look, we for the past few years have been talking about how fractured the fandom was. And I think that, even before this particular episode, there was emerging in a reconciliation of the fandom that had started to begin with the Mandalorian, right? Look, I mean, just to go back real quick. I mean, look, we had no idea that we were going to get the child, right? When we had first seen the Mandalorian, we had seen trailers. Excuse me. We had seen trailers, and in no trailer of the first season of Mandalorian before the show actually dropped was there any hint of the child, and people were on board for it. So I think that these guys know enough about how they're going to shape the story in order to get people on board again. And I think that even with Boba Fett, I think that enough people will have put their trust in the current team that they will be willing to say, okay, you know what? Boba Fett should have been dead, but he's here. Boba Fett was so badass in The Mandalorian that there is almost no way that they haven't plotted this out and that they're totally going to just drop the ball on this. I think they realize how important, because remember, think about it. Boba Fett was a legendary character that didn't do a damn thing in the movies.
True.
People like the legend of Boba Fett, precedes him, like lightning precedes thunder.
Oh yeah. No, Boba Fett was a big in the fans' mind long before there was a reason for it, because he just like, wow, who's that? That looks like a badass character. And I think what was even the Star Wars holiday special was actually when he first showed up before. Yeah, I know it hurts, doesn't it? But yeah, that's actually where he first sort of showed up. So yeah, the legend of Boba Fett was, I think, entirely fan driven. So yeah, I mean and I think the chat's pretty much with you on all that. We have a few thoughts on Grogu's future. Dan Palm is asking about Grogu with a lightsaber being a badass in the future. Yes, please. Eric Scott, I wish the Mandalorian would be every single week forever. Much agreement with you. Also in the chat, Devontae Smith just wants Grogu to be able to talk next time we see him. He is 50. He should have developed that by now. I completely agree. So yeah, a lot of great excitement here. I wanted to try and get Rob's take on this. He seems to have Oh, is that Boba? Boba's showing up. All right, Boba. Well, man, maybe you've got some thoughts on what we are hoping to see of your future. Why don't you clue us in on that, man?
Well, I just want to first off talk about how the predictions of my demise were greatly exaggerated. That couldn't have gone better. I mean, I turned around and I just killed those two TIE fighters like they were nothing. And then I went light speed, because that's how Boba Fett rolls, you know? I've been listening to you guys chat on for a good long while, and now you're worried about the Boba Fett show that's coming out next year. Well, I mean, come on, look at it. I mean, I'm going to basically call this the unofficial origin of Melinda May. That this is where she actually got started. That Fennec Shan is actually Melinda May. That a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, a woman named Fennec Shan joined me in Jabba's palace, and we kicked ass all across the universe. Eventually, she got bored, took a ship, and landed on this place called Earth, where she took the form of a person named Melinda May, and then began to kick ass for S.H.I.E.L.D. for several years, never quite getting the glory that she had with me in space. So don't worry about how good the show is going to be. We're going to definitely kick it up a notch. And we're going to give you some stuff you haven't even thought about seeing before. Because we're in Jabba's palace. We're going to be on Tatooine. We got so many different creatures out here to kill. We got so many different storylines to tell. That, yes, we might have to earn your respect. But you're going to earn it very quickly. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, Boba, thank you for dropping in and giving us that insight into what we can expect, ladies and gentlemen. You only get the best here on the Fandalorians. Boba Fett himself showing up with a promise that we have any of our expectations or end up being blown away. Rob, thank you for giving Boba a chance to clue us in. I am super excited now.
Yeah, he was pointing a blaster at me the whole time, so I figured I better give him a couple of seconds. Because, you know, we had the show going and life got in the way, but I wasn't going to let him not have something to say at the end. You know, I got to give him his 5 seconds before he moves on, you know. Just had to wait we were waiting our turn, you know. We were waiting our turn politely. So, and as far as I think, you know, the Boba Fett show is going to be, I mean, Boba Fett pretty much said exactly what I feel. Is that, you know, you don't have to be excited about it. You don't have to be a Boba Fett fan. I think that they're just going to give us something a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And does it have to even matter in the end? Like, does it connect to anything? Does it make the story go any further? Or can it just be our kind of procedural show of just showing Boba Fett kick ass in the past, the future, the present, whatever? I think that they're just going to, this is going to be the fun show. And it's going to show, like, everybody that's been, you know, Boba Fett didn't get to do anything in the movies. Well, now we've seen him do stuff on The Mandalorian, and we're going to see him kick even more butt now. And again, like I said, we didn't want him to die because Disney understands marketability. And now that you've given, you know, Boba Fett an injection of life here, and one of the most popular characters as far as merchandising goes, they're not going to let it go now. And so I'm glad that we were wrong about, you know, his death here, because it's a cash cow. The only argument or the only worry is that they mishandle it. And I think you guys were saying already that they're not gonna mishandle it. They're learning from their mistakes. We've said it before on this show. The future is streaming, and Disney is understanding that that's where the money is. This is where you're going to see Star Wars. I would say that the one thing that we haven't talked about where it's going is possibly showing this stuff in the theaters. Showing The Mandalorian like in 2-part movie form or something in theaters. Like, I would sit there for 2 hours and watch 4 hours, you know, like 2.5 hours of The Mandalorian. So yeah, no, I think Boba Fett's going to be great. And like I said, yeah, the Melinda May thing, I mean, I was joking, you know, like Boba and I were coming up with that on our own. And I mean, I really do wish that that's the truth. In my heart of hearts is that Fennec Shan is the real Melinda May. Melinda May is a creation of Fennec Shan, and she's just been kicking ass across the universe for centuries. And that's why she don't age. You know? I mean, look at her. She's like 57. Is that what somebody put in the chat?
Yeah,
I thought she was
57.
So, I mean, you know, I met her up close and personal, man, and she does not look 57. So she's, you know, she's like an eternal. And so, you know, she doesn't live by our rules, man. So maybe I'm just saying Ming-Na Wen is a celestial being.
Well, Eric Scott thinks that that's why May wasn't afraid of going into space, and Devante thinks that, yeah, she has lied. She has driven spaceships before. So you getting some agreement in the chat here, Rob.
Yeah. Unofficial.
Well, the one thing I want to know is when is it that she ends up trapped in the spaceship on the far side of the universe, connected to the Stargate
Nice
universe
one.
reference?
No, that was a good one. That was a good one. One season, folks. If you didn't catch it,
okay.
Two
All right.
season.
But
two.
Quit. This, you know, like somebody's got to be the. Look, we all know that it's somewhere down the line, Disney is going to be wanting to merge Marvel and Star Wars. We know it's going to happen someday. Maybe not in our lifetime, but you know you're going to see, like, the second time I was watching this today, I was like, Mando comes around a corner. I was like, can you imagine if right after Mando around that corner walked Tony Stark, you know, in Iron Man outfit? So I feel like at some point it's gonna happen. And I was like, just like Clark Gregg's Coulson was the overall connecting force to the MCU, the through line, the guy who was always there. Why couldn't Melinda May be the crux that bridges the gap between Star Wars and Marvel? You know?
Okay, now I just want to see Hulk versus Rancor.
Yeah, why not?
You know
it's gonna happen. You know it's gonna happen in some form down the line, right? Even if they just do it in like the comics or something, where it's like Marvel versus Star Wars, if they haven't already done it before. Sounds like something they would have already done before. Yeah,
it'll be part of the What If series.
You know, I think one of the other things I was thinking about was when we saw Luke. It was something that I'd been talking about forever, which was why isn't Star Wars or Marvel getting in on the animation game for stories that we want to see when you can do the CGI and you got the actors, most of them are still alive to do some of these stories in CGI form where you could have Han and Mark and other people, you know, playing out these stories animated form. I feel like it's a real missed opportunity for both Marvel and Star Wars that they haven't done more animation for film wise, like, you know, like how Into the Spider-Verse and stuff, that kind of thing.
Well, that's really where a lot of the game stuff could cross over really well.
Yeah,
you could have Luke in a game
stuff. Yeah, I really did kind of think for a second that the Jedi that had shown up was going to be the guy from Cal from Fallen Order.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm babbling now.
That's all right. That's right. We're like 2.5 hours, and so many people have stuck with us throughout this entire show. Thank you guys catching us live. But I do think it's probably about time that we wrap things up. We have hit every point. We have gone in. We have had our speculation. Look, we had Boba Fett show up. I think that is when you end the show right there. So we're going to circle around. Let everybody know if you've got any final thoughts to throw that in, and then let people know where they can find you. Rob, why don't you lead us off, and we'll take it clockwise around the screen.
All right. Well, you can find me at Smirking Gun Reviews, where on Mondays we're currently reviewing His Dark Materials Season 2. On Thursdays, it's The Expanse. We are taking a little break from Agent Carter, but we're going to be doing Agent Carter Season 2 by the end of the year. I think it's New Year's Eve. We're going to be doing a live first 2 episodes of Season 2 on New Year's Eve. We're still doing holiday reviews, where tomorrow we're going to be covering Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas from 1977. That is going to be an afternoon review, so like around 3:30, something like that. We'll be doing a live review of that. And then Sunday, or no, that's then Tuesday we're doing Jack Frost. Wednesday, Secret Santa, and Friday, Batman Returns. On Twitch, you can find me at Smirking Gun Plays, where we're playing Final Fantasy X, Resident Evil 3, and on Twitter at reviews_gun. Sorry, that was a lot.
Excellent. What about yourself, Don? Any last thoughts, and where can people find you? I know you got some stuff coming up.
Yeah, so of course, final thoughts for the episode. Luke freaking Skywalker. Listen, you can find me here with my compatriots for Agent Carter Season 1. That will be in the next few weeks in the new year. And of course, the other Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reviews that we do. Sooner or later back on my channel for A Song of Ice and Fire, because, everyone's gearing up for House of the Dragon. So you can look for the character bios when I start to do those again. Of course, you can also find me guesting at some point on this guy's channel over here for The Expanse. And make sure to follow me on Twitter at iDonWillie. That is IDonWilli. I don't tweet much, but when I tweet,
that is very true. And of course, from right below me, we've got Mark. Any final thoughts? And of course, let people know what you are up to.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say, of course, again, thanks again for letting me jump in here last second. It was a huge blast. You warned me we'd go long, so it was all good. Great talking about this episode. It was interesting hearing different opinions, too. So, what has Darren mentioned before? My name is Mark. My channel is Enchantment of Eternity. I am covering The Expanse. Currently, I'm doing my own personal review for The Expanse the day the episode drops, and the day after, Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific West Coast time. I am joined by this guy right here, who's joining me every week to talk about Expanse and having different sort of rotating guests, such as this guy over here, to talk about the Expanse as well. So, and I also will be covering Star Trek Discovery, finishing up my coverage of that, and I think in just a couple of weeks, I will drop my annual top 10 best shows of 2020. Something I look forward to doing every year. So yeah, be sure to check me out for that and more.
Excellent. And also want to be sure to just thank everybody who has joined us in the chat tonight with our big, giant mega discussion. People who've joined us every week for Fandalorians, and all of you that are joining us in the archives. This show's so much more boring without you around. And we love getting your feedback, and we love having you in the chat. Love hearing so much about your thoughts, your insights. And what we hope to do here is have just a fun fan discussion. Sometimes there's love, sometimes there's a little bit of not so much love, but there is always good discussion. This isn't about telling people they are wrong. It's about celebrating what it is that we love. And when we don't love it, it's only because we want to see it a little bit better than what it is. But everyone, thank you so much for joining us. You're going to catch Agent Carter starting our season review of 1 will be next month. You're going to catch me doing this guy's Expanse reviews for the next February or something. And then, of course, we do have some possible fan division coming up in January. So, yeah, little Marvel puns there. I will do as many shows as puns that I can find. That's my requirement. Thank you guys, everyone, for joining us. We will catch you next time. Take care and bye-bye. Thank you.